Welcome to the Leighton Inclusion Interview Show. The show is about recognizing the difference between kindness and cruelty, especially when it comes to kindness. We'll be talking more about that, especially when it comes to self expression and exploration, as well as connecting with the real world. And I'd like to welcome Sonya Mastick to the show. Hi, Sonya. How are you?
Hey, and great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. And I have a feeling I've known you without even knowing about it for years. I know that I met you through the Detroit progressive rock band Tiles, and we're friends on social media. And I think we have a lot in common in the sense that we both love to do many things.
Yeah.
Sonya's a drummer, writer, marketing expert, weightlifter, mental health professional, and podcaster, and so much more. How do you define yourself?
I don't know. I define myself as somebody that's really curious about a lot of different things, and I don't let the fear of failure impede my curiosity.
Yeah, you just do, and we're supposed to fail, aren't we?
Mm.
And and
That's where the good stuff is. That's where the I always say like it's the new get of life is the good part is when you fail because failure is just information. It's not an indictment.
no, it's
And
not.
so, idea of failing is you just go that didn't work out the way that I planned, but it wasn't. I'm an idiot who should have never done that. It's just like, oh, because even like we don't even give ourselves the leeway to sort of change gears, meaning like you really think you want to do something and then you start getting involved in it and you're like, this is not at all what I wanted. And we
Mm,
give people a hard time about that instead of just going, oh my gosh, get out as soon as you realize it's not what you want. And so,
right, right. And it's also, I think sometimes I think failure has been given a bad rap because you have people that just get angry or scornful
yeah,
about our failures, and that's why we probably would think, oh my God, I did something horrible. And you dwell on it all weekend long instead of going out to the park and buying ice cream or whatever.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but it's this culture of I joke a lot about the different movies, and one of them is Talladega Nights, and how it's such a ridiculous movie, but they're making really solid points, which is if you're not first, you're last.
Right.
And they use it as a joke over and over, but that is our culture as a whole. You get up and you hustle and grind, and all I do is win, win, win. Everything's got to be a win instead of like, oh, you know what, we could be a lot easier on ourselves. And again, making failure not an indictment, but a learning experience.
Right. And I had a great time racing. That's Will Ferrell movie, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
I remember that movie. I don't know if I watched it, but I know I've seen a lot of his movies for sure. You have a new business that you're starting?
Yes, it's called Orange Otter Marketing, and I started it with a couple friends of mine. I've had a marketing business for a little over 10 years now, by myself, but I just got tired of doing things by myself, and so I'd reached out to some friends of mine that I'd met through marketing, and they had been recently one had quit and one had been let go because of a downsizing in business, and so I reached out to them and thought, like, at the beginning of the year, like, hey, I wonder if they just want to do this together. And they both were like, absolutely, absolutely.
That's cool. You know what? That is kind of one of your premises because I've noticed you're capable of doing a lot alone, but you seem to, whether you've been in bands or worked at Live Nation or being a part of the Detroit scene for all these years, or even just in your counseling work, you're not an island unto
Right.
yourself. You really do seem magnanimous.
Yeah. And I just love people. That's the thing of why I'm good at coaching is just the curiosity of people and, what makes them tick and how they work. And just, I love, I mean, I joke and say that I'm 50-50. I'm equal parts introvert and extrovert because I also love
Yeah,
like, movies by myself and taking naps and and things. And so I can walk in the woods, by myself and stuff. But I do love, being around people as well.
yeah. Well, you play drums, you probably have to work with people.
Yeah, yeah. Or be the loudest. I mean, I can bully them around a little bit with time, but otherwise, yeah, I've got to be a team player.
Right, right. And and while I was researching this uh, interview, I found an all music guide that you play drums with tiles.
Mhm.
How is that possible?
I played percussion with them on several releases. We've been friends for a super long time, and they're so gracious and kind. And they brought me in for several different recordings, and so I've had the privilege of being on recordings with like Mike Portnoy and Alex
Wow.
Lifeson, and I got to go up to Toronto and to Terry Brown, who produced a bunch of the Rush albums and a million other albums. I got to go up to his studio and record in Toronto with Tiles, and that was the album that Kim Mitchell was on, and Alex Lifeson and other people. I didn't meet them, but I went up and did my sessions for like 3 days, and it was a blast. But they are always so gracious to bring me in when they have
We're freezing.
projects coming up, and so we've had a long friendship, the band and I.
Cool. How did you guys meet? Guys and gal, how did you meet?
I want to say we met through, there was a, I don't even know if it exists anymore in the city, but there was it was a music magazine, like a local press called Jamrag.
No, it
And
doesn't.
yeah, and so I was writing for them for a little bit, and I had been to just coincidentally at a show that Tiles was performing, and I was like, who are these people? Like, they were absolutely amazing. And then so I did an interview with them, and we've just been friends since. And it was
Cool.
like early 90s, I think, when we met.
Oh, wow. So I met them about 2000, and
Okay.
they were signed to Magna Carta, and I did
Mhm.
publicity for them. And they've all stayed in touch. And I've had artists like, especially Joe Denenzone and Stratusferius, they've had him do shows with them. And I stayed in touch with Chris, especially through the years. And I just love him. And we talked a little bit about the recent album that he did, which
Yeah.
was a tribute to his father who passed from Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that
So
that is I finally bought it a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, having similar experiences in my family, it was tear worthy. Like, I could relate to a lot of it, and it is masterful. It is such a good release. It's so good.
yeah, yeah, and he wrote his heart out on it. And who who are some of the Detroit? Who are some of your favorite artists? And you're based in Detroit. You
I
wrote for
am.
Jam Rag, and who
Yeah,
are
yeah.
some of your favorite artists and bands there?
I mean, I feel like if I mention anybody, I'll be leaving so many people out. But it is like a very like rich tapestry of a scene, and so
Yeah.
um, for me, I got to be support. So sometimes I played drums. A lot of times I played percussion, though. I played like congos and timbales and stuff in bands, and so I got to play for a lot of different people that would just hire in. And one of the ones that I really loved, is Stuart Frankie, and he
Oh.
just passed away. Yeah, and so Stewart passed away a few weeks ago, and so there's so many bands that I absolutely love, and I some of them I actually love their music, and some of them I love as human beings, that I've got to know over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a weird that one with Stewart hit hard. That was very, I mean, he lived a long time as recovering from, he had leukemia, and then ended up
Right.
having a bunch of other health issues. But it's still never long enough, even though he had a lot of years longer than they maybe thought that he should have had. And it's
Yeah.
still freaking sad, man.
Yeah, and he wore a lot of hats too.
Yeah, writer, and yeah, I mean, even like did stuff with Springsteen. And I mean,
Wow.
yeah, he did a recording with, and Bruce was on it. Yeah, it's incredible. Like, it just was, he was just like unstoppable. I think that's partly why it feels so strange, for him to pass away, because the guy was like evergreen. You know what I mean? Like, he always inventing, always creating, always pushing, even when he was struggling through personal struggles and through health struggles and stuff. And so, um, yeah, that was tough. But there are tons of bands that I love, and like, I really love jazz, and so I love Straight Ahead. And it's all female jazz band. They were on Atlantic back in the day. They're they're royalty here. They're absolutely amazing. So I love them.
Who was the band?
It's Straight Ahead.
Straight Ahead.
Yeah, so
That's a great name.
yeah, jazz band, and the drummer Galen McKinney is a good friend of mine, and she was Aretha Franklin's last drummer, right,
Oh
just before
wow.
Aretha died, and so she did the last tours.
Right.
And they're insanely good musicians, but really nice people. And but like I said, I love jazz, I love metal, I love I love everything in between, really. Other than I'm sorry to anyone I'd offend, but I don't like country. But
Oh,
that's it.
I do.
Yeah, it's just not for me. I think it's good, you know what I mean? I think they're talented, but it just isn't for me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's all right. It's for me. I I
yeah.
I I love it, and I love classic oldies rock and roll like Barrett Strong.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I play with Barrett.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Barrett was I met him through this singer songwriter. Her name's Eliza,
okay.
and she does like blues and pop and R&B, and he was her manager.
Ah.
Yeah. And so she hired my husband first, and then they ended up hiring me to play percussion, and I played drums for her too sometimes. And it was wild, because you think of Barrett Strong, for the listeners, wrote dozens and dozens and dozens of number one hits for Motown, for the Beatles, for I
Yeah.
mean, just a million people. He's absolutely incredible. Him, Holland, and Dozer wrote just about everything. I know there's other writers, so nobody come fight me. But
Right.
they were like the everything was always like Holland, and Dozer, or Strong, Holland. So Barrett wrote the first hit, "Money." That's what I want,
Yeah.
and he sang that, and he was and so he was an interesting character. I ended up getting to know him. He had a studio, which I was in your fantasy of people like that. You're like, oh, it's just this magnificent studio in this beautiful, sprawling, palatial estate. No, he had like the most like humble, but it was a good studio, and it was in Southfield, Michigan, is just outside of Detroit.
Uh-huh.
And I'm in Ferndale, which I'm 1 mile from 8 Mile. I'm literally the movie 8 Mile. I'm at 9 Mile in
Eminem.
Woodward, and so
Right.
we're Southfield and Ferndale are close to each other. And so his studio was in Southfield, and it was in the bottom floor of like a medical complex.
Sure. Oh
And
my God, that the the operations, the
it was just
procedures.
like like people that are like chiropractors and stuff like that. And so it was like a strip mall, but he was in all the basement area, so he had like a bunch of different rooms down there. And
Right.
then after a while, he would just hire me in to just like, I wouldn't know what I was be doing that day, so he's like, oh, I want you to come in and play drums. And I would just sometimes come in and play rhythms, and the engineer, the producer, would just call out different tempos, and they would use those underneath like hip hop and things like that, where I would
Ah.
just lay different tracks, and I had no idea what they'd be on. And sometimes I would be like in CVS, and I'm like, oh, that's how I would play that. That's me. Yeah, because I just get paid for the day. I don't know what my stuff's gonna be on, so
Oh, sure.
we're all
Very cool.
surprised when I hear it.
Well, I like when they use real drums for hip hop, but I also am grateful for the drum machine if you're a poet, which I
Yeah,
am.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you understand that. I listen. I am not elitist with that. I love the value of everything, and I've used, even with my own writing my own music, drum machines and stuff. Like I think I
Cool.
love 80s like rap, like
Mm-hmm.
Eric B and Rakim and stuff like that. And so I love the like the 808 sort of drum
Yeah,
machine
yeah,
sound.
yeah.
I love it. It's so classic, and it's embedded in part of my like informative years of learning about music and stuff. And so I love all mediums, especially because things like drum machines and keyboards give accessibility to people that have like arthritis or mobility issues. Like, I
Sure.
love the beauty of like everyone can be included in the process.
Me coming up through the years as a rock and roller here in New York City, at one point Rick Derringer lived in New York, and he was one of my inspirations, and he would always say technology is a gift,
Yeah,
and we have it. That
yeah,
he was a big Les Paul fan who modernized multi-track recording,
yeah, yeah,
so he knew the difference between not using multi-tracks and hey, we can go back and make things amazing. Because I have to admit, when I listen to some of the old recordings from the 1950s, 1960s, I think I was listening to Misery from Barrett Strong, and I was like, oh, the vocals are a little overmodulated and this and that. So I get it.
yeah. And
You,
there's like like I said, there's a sort of beauty in all those things because I love the
There is.
naturalness of especially the 70s where you think about like the wall of sound. You have like 50 instruments in one room creating Spector's wall of sound, and they're doing it
Right.
in one take. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's got to play right. Nobody can fuck this up. Because we're
Right.
paying $8 billion an hour, and you think about the stuff they wrote for Ike and Tina and stuff like that. Like it was just spectacular, and so I this gets like a little woo woo and esoteric, but I love like the sort of the imprint that it puts on the recording of all those people in a room
Yeah.
just trying to playing their heart out, trying to get it right. And I think it like added some sort of soul or energy to the albums that we still
It
relate to
did.
this day, because you hear Spector stuff and it's just like it still like blows your wig back.
It does. Some of the greatest records, for sure. I want to do one more Detroit heroine for me, which is the Quattro sisters.
Ugh,
Especially, I have to say Susie Quattro, man,
yeah,
and their brother Michael, but Susie, man.
yeah.
But what about you? Did you know anybody in that group of people?
I don't personally. I mean, I've met Susie at show. I used when I worked for Live Nation. She'd come to shows sometimes, so I definitely have met
Hmm.
her. But just I like everyone else. Like Happy Days was the
Right,
first time where I was like, "Whoa, she's so cool. Who is this?" And not
right.
learning until I was much older, like, "Oh, it's Susie Quattro, and she's from Detroit, and and yeah." So that is I want to say that um, I met her the first time doing Lilith Fair, and it was like one of
Lilith
the Lilith
Fair?
Fair dates. Yeah, that she came out and was watching people because it was like it was Joan Jett on the bill and Sarah McLachlan and Michelle and DeGiocello and
Hmm.
Sinead O'Connor. Like it was a monster bill. And so, like Courtney Cox came out one night. Like
Wow.
different nights that you go, you'd see like a bunch of celebrities on the side because they're all super fans too. And
Right.
yeah, so and I believe that it was those shows that the first time I met Susie.
Yeah, you know what? I really liked how instead of being a douchebag to up and coming the Runaways, she was in their corner, and she still is in their corner.
Yeah,
Every now and then I see pictures. Cherise, and I'm a big Runaways fan too.
yeah,
Cherise always posting photos of her and Susie on her social media. It's just wonderful.
yeah. It is a reminder that life is not a pie. There's enough for
No,
everybody.
but we can be supportive, and I think that's a good thing. Segue. Your training as a personal development coach. What was that? What kind of
um,
training?
the training is I had to do a couple of years of schooling, and it was Tony Robbins
Mm,
was actually so it was a course that he offered. It was him and Chloe Madanes. I can never say her last name right, but I think it's Madanes, and she's a psychologist. And so, um, I thought it was really interesting in the aspect of they were half and half, where it was like I've already done a lot of business coaching through my marketing business for people.
sure.
And so I felt like it was a good mix of like half business coaching and half psychology based coaching, because a lot of people that came to me about problems for business, the business was never the problem. It was always, it was a family business and people were butting heads with how the business should be done. Or, it was always sort of like these inner dynamics going on within the staff and the business, and it was rarely like it was never their lack of intellect or knowing or stamina or ability. It was like sort of these integrated system problems that they were having with each other.
Like abilities to listen to each other or hating each other or what?
Yeah, all that. So like abilities to trust each other, to do the right thing, to listen to each other, to value each other's ideas. Like it would kind of span the gamut. But the reason why I started doing coaching specifically was in 2000, 2020. I got COVID. I didn't know I had COVID. It was in the beginning when it was
Yeah.
still new here, and I was very sick for months, and then I ended up getting a brain injury from it. So I lost a lot of my speech. I lost the grip in my right hand. I ended up having to do like a lot of therapy for that. But when I was going to you have to get like a psychological assessment to find out if you have a brain injury. I came back and the psychologist was like, yes, you absolutely have a brain injury. Let's go to speech therapy. Let's do all the therapies you need. I'm doing fine, by the way, for everyone listening. Um, but they were like, but did you know that you're ADHD? And I was
Huh.
like, no. I mean, believe me, I am so ADHD. It never occurred to me that it's also hyper focus, which is why I can open up all these businesses and do all these things. And then when I was reading about ADHD, then I was like, oh, because I give you all kinds of in the books, all kinds of parts of the spectrum, and I was like, I think I'm autistic, and so I went for testing, and I am, and so
Huh.
I get this ADHD and autism diagnosis, and then I went online for support for these like Facebook support groups of women later in their lives getting a diagnosis because I was 49, 48 when I got diagnosed, and uh everybody was like doom or gloom. They're like, now I know I'm broken. Now I know there's something wrong with me. But for me, I was like, holy shit, everything makes sense. My whole life makes sense now. And I was like happy to get the diagnosis. And so I thought, like, I'm going to get the education I need, but I'm going to go into coaching and help people go
Right.
through these weird stages of their lives where it feels uncertain and make them feel, hopefully make them feel optimistic about their future.
Hmm. Isn't there a little bit of autism in all of us, though, especially if we're artists or create? I haven't been quote diagnosed, but in elementary school I was ADD, hyperactive.
Yeah, that's ADHD now is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and I haven't. I will be going to a neuro, uh,
Neuropsych. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get tested because I deal with agoraphobia every time I go outside. I'm 8 miles mother ambassador basically. So
Uh, well, uh, it isn't true that everyone is autistic, but it definitely is true that everyone um, lives on a spectrum. And meaning that I think we, especially in this country, we don't value individuality
right,
and we don't value treating people the way they are. Like you think about the military, like everybody kind of wants to fit everyone into the sameness mold.
right,
And
men.
think about how the fact to this day, most products that you and I use, Anne, are not tested on women at all. A phone is only it's only designed to fit in a man's hand. So
Huh.
even like all these things that are designed still, even things that are used for women that are not tested with women or women aren't even given an opinion about. So it's like we really are pushing this conformity of it's easier to kind of keep people in line and to get people to do what you want and to work the way you want and be productive the way you want if you can just say like we all should act this one way. And it's like we're none of us are this one way. Even the people who want you to be this one way are not this one way.
No.
And so that's the thing is like it does a disservice because if you can give everyone the space to be who they are and respect who they are, respect that, some people are more anxious about certain things. Some people are more confident about certain things. And instead of like making fun of people that don't like a texture or a smell or a taste and go like, yeah, it's cool. Because
Right,
so
right,
that way, yes, we all have like, we all have our own wildly individual preferences that we are taught to squash down and just try to be like everybody else.
right. Don't be so sensitive or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
If someone says, I don't like this food, or I don't like artichokes, or whatever,
Yeah.
or I don't like going outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Although that's a good thing to do.
but I'm saying like that's the thing is like I feel like it would be better to have people in a system that's supportive of that being something that you are working through instead of
Hmm.
going like what the fuck's wrong with you, Anne? What the
Right,
hell, are you broken? Like no, like there's shit going on that is none of your damn business that I am working through and going through. And like no, again, like it's the thing that always frustrates me. It's like nobody wants to have to struggle with things. Do you think we're enjoying it? Do you think this is a good time, for everybody? Do you think also like people telling people, like, oh, you should probably get over that? Do you not think that I know that? Do you think that I don't sit and labor about this all day, every day?
right, right, right. How do we find and embrace our strengths, especially if we're on the spectrum and don't know it?
Well, the don't know it is a tough part, and that's kind of the sort of the hitch in all of this is that it's hard to know what you need if you don't know what you need.
Ah,
So if you don't really know the way the brain works, and you don't know what you need, there's a lot of books like Divergent Mind and other books out there that will give you like tests in there. Of course, it's not like professional testing, but it is written by doctors with PhDs and their specialty in that. And there's a lot of stuff online where you can kind of go through free testing, or very
sure,
inexpensive testing to sort of know. But there's a lot of people that this is a hot debate in the community among people that are on the spectrum, is whether you can self-diagnose or not.
sure,
And so it's like, do you need a doctor to tell you that you are, or can you say I am because I know myself better than anyone else knows me? And it's a hot topic too, because we live in a country that doesn't value healthcare, and so there's so many barriers
oh,
to get the care you need.
sure. Well, how do we embrace and find our strengths, forgetting about if you don't know you're on the spectrum, but it's like, I'm doing this work and I like it. I may not be good at it, but boy, I sure like to write poetry, or I like to sing songs, or something like that.
It's
Should that
certainly
be
continuing to do it, and then finding your community of people that support you in that.
brilliant? Yeah,
Because again, you don't want, like Debbie Downer saying like you should be doing that and you can't do that. You want to kind of find your people, and that's the beautiful thing that came out of COVID. Like there's a lot of horrible stuff that came out of it, inflation, people dying, like awfulness, but there's a lot of good things too, which is like um for people that don't like, that can't go outside, that have mobility issues, and is that you can do like that website Meetup, where you
sure.
can find groups where you can just do them virtually and meet up with people, and they're free. So you have like these writers groups and these other groups, and so that I think is a big thing, is to make sure that you have, even if it's a few people, but some sort of community or support around you that encourages you to do those things that make your heart happy and you love. And you had said something where you're like, I may not be very good at it. That's my other thing too, is like, oh my gosh, just do the things you love. Not everything has to be commodified. So it doesn't have to be like a commodity and be sold or be great. Like I paint, I'm awful. I love to paint, it's super fun. I'm not going to
Right.
be good. I'm not taking classes. I'm not going to try that hard at it. I just like to do it for fun.
You probably have a lot more original ideas as opposed to someone doing something that looks exactly like you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a lot of execution though. I would like that a little more.
I hear you.
I've got my thumbs in a lot of pies. So I'm like, that's just not something I'm going to be good at, but I don't want to like, because I do think the same thing. Like, what are you doing sitting here doing? I'm like, nobody's going to think this is great. I'm like, well, I think it's great. So I'm going to keep doing it. It's fun and I like it. And it's a nice way to sort of relax and use my brain in a different way. And so, to everyone listening, my God, if you enjoy, do it, do it. Just do it.
Sure. I like the fact that you also talked about finding our community of folks, which is part one of the reasons I'm doing the podcast, because for a long time I really sought the approval, or I tried to be right for people that weren't so kind.
Yeah.
And in the end I got excluded.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of me's, people like me, in the world that feel isolated, and boom, we're all connecting and getting together. And I think that could also, connecting with all the kind people and people that want to make a difference, I think that can
Yeah.
make the world a better place for sure.
Do you feel since COVID that it's been more acceptable to access people via Zoom and virtually?
Yeah, I did not know about Zoom until COVID. And early on, I joined Toastmasters,
Oh yeah.
and that made a difference for me. And those are my friends. And
That is brazenly brave to do. I would never in all my life do Toastmasters. That is so
ah,
that is so
well,
scary.
my big passion for a long time has been to perform my poetry.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable in front of a crowd for some reason, if I practice, and I think to or prepare. I
Yeah.
should say prepare. I think I think that it's great to go in front of an audience and do your music or do your song. If I don't prepare, I would get nervous, though. I will say that.
Well, yeah, because you're sort of winging it. But I think everyone has their sort of niche too. Like I can play in front of, I have played in front of tens of thousands of people. I'm nervous, but I can play drums. But like if you ask me to stand up and do like speak, you're out of your mind. There's no
Right.
way. There's no way. I think people have to be like sort of engineered in some way or the other to be able to do that. And so all credit to you, Anne, to stand up and do poetry. That is brave, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. I I I love watching television also,
Mm,
and I I'll spend a couple hours a week watching new TV shows, series. Once in a while, I'll watch a movie too, but lately I've been watching shows about women finding their superpowers and girls. Blossom is one of the shows I'm watching, and I'm also watching Geek Girl. I just finished Kate Hudson's
mm,
Running.
yeah.
And by the way, in Running Point, Kate Hudson's mouth is a lot like her mom's, Goldie Hawn.
Mm,
I think, and we're gonna do, because I know that you're a sports gal, you lift weights. Kate's superpowers, her character Isla, they came through in situations that helped her realize, wow, I got this, or we got this. Have you been in a situation when you realized, wow, I got this, or we got this?
I think, for the segue of that, it was really weightlifting. And I didn't start until I was 45, I think.
Wow, sweet.
And yeah, so I was just like, I had a friend that was doing it. She's older than I am. And she kept encouraging me. And she was a power lifter. And I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm not going to do this. And so I remember like walking into this gym. It's still there, and it is a old school powerlifting gym. And I mean like the machines are older than I am. I mean, it is old school, heavy barbells, it's quite the deal. And
Since Geronda.
yeah, so there was this guy Art Little who was the coach, and he'd coached many people to world records and stuff, and so my friend Mindy was like, go in and see Art. Art will totally, he'll hook you up. And I went in there, and I remember like my knees were shaking because
Wow.
I'd never like done like heavyweight like that. And so the first day I trained with him, he's like, you get you under a barbell and you back squat. And I remember the 45, or I think it's a 55-pound bar, was so freaking heavy.
Sure.
But then I remember the first time I did a deadlift, and it was a lot of weight, and that was when I was like, I could think I could do this. And he was like, go home, come back in 2 days. So we basically trained 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. And
Wow.
yeah, it was like heavy duty train. Sometimes we trained 3 hours. And so I remember I got through the first week, and I came back the first day of the second week, and he's like, you know what? I'm surprised you showed up. And I was like, yeah, why is that? He's like, the thing is that if you show up after that first week of abuse, you're hooked and you're coming back. And he was totally right, because it was the most empowering thing to be able to like, deadlift hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And, it just to feel empowered like that was absolutely incredible.
Early on, you were doing hundreds and hundreds of pounds at early mid
Pretty
40s.
quickly with deadlift was like my jam. That was my best lift. And so I think I think I could start was around like 145 or something like that.
Is deadlifting bending over and just picking it up?
No, you bend over and just like pick it up, from the ground. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's Olympic lifting you're thinking of, and I don't do that. That is really hard. One of my best friends does it, and she's very good. She's second in the world, or second
Oh,
in
wow.
the U.S. for Olympic lifting, but I am not.
Can we ask who it is in case she has social media?
So she doesn't really go on social media, but her name is Alyssa Davies, and she's an amazing athlete. And she even, she was a very competitive college swimmer and swam in the U.S. Open, and she's a very good athlete. But yeah, she does Olympic lifting. I do not.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I think I do more calisthenics and I use light weights, and I haven't gone to a gym. There is a gym around me, but it's kind of hard to get to.
Mm.
So, oh well. But it's fun. It's
Yeah. Oh,
really,
it's so fun. Yeah.
yeah. And walking also is, I think walking has become my superpower.
Walking is
Um,
absolutely amazing. So good for your heart and for your
yeah.
mind and your nervous system. I mean, that's the thing is everyone thinks like to get to, like to do anything, you've got to like lift heavy weight or really do cardio instead of just the thing of like, um, there's a type of therapy. Are you familiar with it called EMDR?
Uh,
So it's like it's EMDR. It's like eye movement. I don't know what the rest
oh,
of it is.
that's to get rid of trauma.
Yes. And so, without going too far into what EMDR is, I could geek out about this all day because it is life changing therapy. You are performing that when you walk.
You might be right because I mentioned earlier I deal with agoraphobia. In my
Mm-hmm.
case, it's crossing big streets by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there have been miracles in me being able to get across big streets, but I certainly am able to get across more streets than I did before if I've got my shopping cart with me and some other things
Yeah.
or
Yeah. So
dog.
it's basically like, the short of it is, and if there's any psychologists listening, I'm sorry how much I'm going to butcher this, but basically, it is the idea of if you have trauma, it's locked in like one hemisphere, one part of your brain in a small area. This is just an example. So let's say it's like the size of a quarter or a half dollar.
Oh wow.
When you're doing it, so basically anything that even comes around there sort of falls in the valley of trauma. So that's why like everyday things, again, this is super oversimplified. So just everyone listening, just hang on for the journey. But it's very oversimplified. But basically, like any sort of thought processes and stuff that go around it fall into that valley of trauma. And so that's why we
Uh-huh.
see it through that lens. And so the idea of EMDR is um, it they do things like you hold on to paddles. You can do it different ways, but basically they will walk you through like traumatic things in your life, talk you through it, and positive things in your life, and they'll buzz the paddle back and forth. And what it does is it keeps lighting up your hemispheres back and forth, left, right, left, right, left, right. So all of your brain starts dealing with trauma, with hard thoughts, with good thoughts. It starts to sort of, it's like a workout and sort of reworks your brain. But that's why your walking is like that because it's left, right, and you're following
Yeah,
it with your
yeah.
eyes, and so it fires. So if you're ruminating and kind of thinking through tough things or good things, it's firing both hemispheres, left and right, back and forth, just like EMDR when you walk. And I had EMDR therapy, and that was what the practitioner said. She said, go for walks, and after this, when you're no longer with me, and it will do the same process.
How cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing that the main few things that I ruminate on, I when I'm not doing anything, I don't seem to ruminate on them when I'm walking.
Yeah.
So maybe just keep walking.
Yeah. I mean, because again, it like really helps us calm our nervous system. And just a change of scenery. You get outside, you see the
Yeah,
sky, you see people, you see animals. It's just a
birds.
nice
Yeah,
change. Yeah, the birds and everything. And I live in a suburb, so also some rogue squirrels. But
cool, cool. Yeah, well, make them fat, give them some breadcrumbs. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they get their snacks. Don't worry. Don't you worry, Ann.
You
Little
rock.
beggars.
I want to go back to TV. What are you watching? Because I remember when I was doing my homework for this, you said that there were some interesting shows, including a reality show that were related to women finding their superpowers
mm.
that
Oh,
you.
I don't remember what that was. I know right now I'm watching with that Natasha Leone's Poker Face.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. I actually got the network again that it's on. I think it's on Peacock to watch it.
Cool,
And so,
cool.
um, basically, she does have a superpower, and her superpower is that she can tell when someone's lying. She
You can
doesn't.
tell.
She can tell when someone's lying. She doesn't know how. She doesn't like know how it happens, but she knows when someone's lying.
I want that power.
Yeah, no kidding. It is really is it. So I think you would really enjoy it too because the way that the writing is for older people. Meaning, it really excuse me, it really follows the writing of Columbo.
Oh,
It's very Columbo style. And so you'd have to be of a certain age to appreciate it and remember it. But a lot of people are like, this is so fresh and new. It's like, this is exactly Columbo. But she always knows when someone's lying.
that is so cool. Does she have a raincoat?
No, no, no. But
Okay.
she sometimes she has a sucker. Like
Okay.
there's all these little sort of like winks and nods. They know exactly what they're doing and what the writing is. And Natasha is wonderful. Orange is the New Black, and she's been in a bunch of shows that I loved. And the other one I do remember the reality show. It is on YouTube, and it's called Itchy Boots. So
Itchy boots.
yeah, and so Itchy Boots is this woman, and her name is Norley Schoenmacher.
Uh-huh.
But the channel is called Itchy Boots, like itching to travel.
Right.
And so what she does is she has literally driven her motorcycle all over the world by herself, and she films it.
Ah.
And so she had like one season where she went she was going to go Patagonia to Alaska, but she ended up getting stopped before she got to Central America because of COVID. But she's been all through like Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq,
Oh wow.
lots of places. And so her backstory basically is she has a master's or PhD in geology,
Uh-huh.
and she got a job out in Australia. She worked in Saudi Arabia for a bit, but she basically helped like these companies mine, like to drill and mine for different things, either to find natural resources to avoid them if they're building something, or to just find like she helped people in Australia find gold.
Oh
and uh
wow.
and so when she got paid out from that, she's like, I'm rich. And so then she started traveling the world. And then 2 years later, she's like, and I'm broke. So now I have to start a channel. Because when you're young, you think like such a little money's rich, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's so good. But it is super inspirational because the entire thing is like, there was Ewan McGregor had a show like that, a reality show called Long Way Down, and it was
Uh-huh.
him and his buddy Charlie, and they rode their motorcycles down from England to like the southernmost tip of Africa. But they had like a whole crew. They had several trucks with them. Whole Rivian built special trucks for them to do the
Mhm.
tour. They had a whole crew back at like a central headquarters back at home to help like with border crossings and everything. She's just by herself, fixes her bike when it breaks down. She's like broken her collarbone. She's had accidents and stuff, but she does this all by herself. No pomp and circumstances. No big deal. And she is the most like lovely, go with the flow, like whatever someone serves her for food, and like she's eating like camel's milk in the middle of a hut in the desert, in this in the middle
Cool.
of you know Africa, and they're like, that's all they have to offer her. Then she's gonna drink the tea with the milk with the flies, all like just like she does not care. And she also shows like how much shit the propaganda has been about other countries,
Oh
because
yeah.
everybody is so lovely to her and gracious and welcoming. And even like when there was countries like when they're going through like Yemen and places where there's a lot of deserts, people would just pull up next to her and she's on her motorcycle, and they would just pull up next to her and hand her bottles of water. And she didn't need them, but it was just like this hospitality of like, we live in a very inhospitable place, and we need to care for each other. But you
We
start
do, and it
oh,
yeah, I mean if our countries were or the leaders of our country were yeah, I have to say when I saw President Cyril Ramaphosa on with Trump yesterday, we're taping this before we broadcast this, and yesterday as we tape this, we had the president of South Africa visiting our president, and he came in with prepared. He
yeah.
brought his agricultural secretary who knew of the incidents that Trump was afraid of, for the white Afrikaners that he brought to the United States. And President Ramaphosa handled this with so much humor and truth that it made a difference. And I have friends, and even though South Africa is a very dangerous place, there's more crime. It's in the top 10 of crime ridden, violent countries. but the people there, I have so many friends from there, Cape Town, and from Cape Town to Johannesburg, there are tons of animal rescuers trying to get the wildcats not to breed with domestic
Yeah.
feral cats, etc. It's just an amazing group of people there. And it's such a minority of people that are creating all these crimes
You're right.
there and here. And and if our leaders were more like Ramaphosa and
Mm.
less like Trump, it would be such a better world.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is like everybody lets their leaders be the representation of what the country is.
Yeah,
And we've never had such a horrific representation of that that now you realize how bad other people have had it and like how badly they've been misrepresented. Because
yeah,
like I understand my friends that travel and they sew Canadian flags on their backpack, like, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's not a pride thing. I'm gonna be like, yeah, and that dumbass in the office, yeah, that's where I'm from. Yep, half of us
yep.
voted for that. But yeah, it is the thing. It's fascinating, yeah, and it is interesting. Like I could go down a rabbit hole with this, which I won't in this
Yeah,
podcast. But yeah, it is absolutely fascinating to see like how it's fascinating to me how shocked we are, because I thought the same thing you did watching that, the Oval Office visit, which it's never like it was for any other past president, regardless of party, where it was like, oh, it was a pleasant Oval Office visit. It's always like now it's like it's almost like this hostile engagement
yeah.
of
And
accusations and indictments, and and then JD Vance going, yeah, daddy, get him with your harsh words, like, what is going on? I mean, the one press briefing where Stephen Miller kept telling him on national television, telling Trump, like, yes, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in our favor. It's like, no, it was 9-0 against you. You're still in court fighting it. What are you talking about? Like, you can't just say something and have it be true. Like,
no, they can't.
what the
And
crap?
it's crazy. I like you. I liked also your quote on Instagram, and I brought this up when I wrote to you from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Apathy is not an option. What inspired that post?
Just waking up and looking around, man. I mean, it is just like, listen, I have a lot of privilege. You all gonna be looking at this and seeing my gray hair and the fact that I'm a 54-year-old white woman. I have a
Right,
shit ton of privilege in this world, and I could go out for the rest of my life with a lot of apathy. But I have a
right,
lot of people that I love that cannot. I have a lot of friends that are gay and lesbian and trans and people
yeah.
of color, and I could easily just leave this country, go to Canada, and go, what, fuck this, because I want my tax money to go to my health care and to everything. I mean, I'm dealing with health stuff right now, and I keep continually getting denied from my I'm paying top dollar for Blue Cross, and they're like, no, we're not going to give you what you need.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez. Yeah.
So, I could easily just bail, but the thing is that, it leaves everyone else on the hook. So it's like, do I take my privilege and be apathetic, or do I take my privilege and wield it? And wield it is the way I want to go. I don't want to be apathetic. I want to make sure that my privilege gets used to help people who don't have it.
Can we apply any marketing advice to convincing people to wake up and speak up for those that need it?
That's a tough one, because we are, by design, over the last 8 years in this country, especially, designed to be very polarized, and none of it
Ye-
is based on truth or fact or reality. It is this cultish camp, cult of personality. This is my camp, this is your camp. I don't have any reasons or logic or rule. I mean, there was a local news anchor who I'm friends with here, who posted, hey, we're gonna have a guest on tonight, and it's a constitutional lawyer. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask them? And so
Right?
my question was, hey, at what point does the president have to listen to the Supreme Court? Because thus far, nothing. There's rulings against, and there's nothing. And I said, this is, because we're talking about the Venezuelans and due process. And I said,
Deporting.
due process is in the Constitution, like it or not. And so a woman replied, and she said, and I think it was well
I'm listening.
intended. This woman
Hmm.
replied, why don't you care, to me, why don't you care about the babies and the people being killed by the droves of Venezuelan gangsters coming in this country to kill us. This is because she has, she's just like we all are. She has her news source she's drinking from, and they're feeding her whatever bullshit they want to feed her. And so I
Yeah.
replied and I said, that's not at all what I'm talking about. I absolutely care about people. What I'm saying is that there's a 9-0 ruling that says that they didn't allow due process. Due process is not my opinion. It is the Constitution. If you want to change that, you can do a ratified amendment and get your elected officials to change due process. But that is the rule. That's the rule. And what I'm saying is that everyone should have to follow the same rules. And we're learning that is not at all what has to happen. And she replied, I think you should take your lips off the ass of Democrats. So again, it's this divisiveness of she's not going to have a conversation. And I replied, I said, I'm not a Democrat. Like I'm for anybody that's willing to do the right thing, and I don't care what party they are. I don't have any allegiance to anybody because I pay their fucking salaries. I don't know if anyone forgot that all these people are living the high off the hog off of our money. This isn't like coming out of the ether. We're paying for them to not allow us to have health care, to not allow us to have a basic stipend for living, for education, for vets to be on the street. Like, so no, I don't think there's any way, unfortunately, Anne, where we can like apply marketing to have people be more empathetic, other than every single chance you have as your own personal representation and as your business to always put your ethos and ethics out there. And if you lose somebody as a customer, then damn the torpedoes. I don't really care. Like, I'm not gonna, you're not my person then. But that'd be the only way. I know I went a long way around. I'm sorry to the listeners that I went on a little bender there, but
no, you did right. I mean, and also when you called in, that lady had issues. Probably somebody listening because you spoke up.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
Said,
but
wait a second. She's got a point about the Constitution and about I have to follow the law, so maybe the president does, and his people do, and maybe ICE has to follow the law. That is really good.
And that's my point. Is like that nobody wants to even have a conversation about what you're talking about. They're fed like 5 talking points and they just respond with that with everything instead of answering the question. Don't jump on the comment section if you're not going to answer the question. And that's the thing, is like, it's always just like and you see how staged it is, because
it is.
With the Musk thing, everyone kept saying the same thing, and I never heard anyone speak differently that was for it. What you're for waste, fraud, and abuse. It's always waste, fraud, and abuse. In that order, those 3 words, and everyone's like, "Oh, so you're for waste, fraud, and abuse?" I'm like, are you an idiot? Of course I'm not. And of course there's fraud in the government. Of course there is. But really, do you think like like dropping a bomb is better than a scalpel? What the hell are you?
Yeah.
I've never thought in all my life I would see so many people that were like, I'll never wear a mask, and it's against my, it's oppressing my constitutional rights, and I need my weaponry in case there's tyranny. Hey, Bubba, tyranny's here, brother. It's at your door. Where's all the outrage now? Where's all the outrage? And they're like, nah, I'm good. It's all right. It's not tyranny against me yet.
Right. Well, it is starting against some of them. And as far, by the way, I'm going to interject something about waste and fraud, because it was actually, I heard Joe Rogan and Bill Murray talk about that very topic. And Bill said something to the effect of, you can get rid of all these people working to, let's say, prevent homelessness in California. But you know darn well that there are people that are employed to get rid of homeless that really are working to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, and that's the bottom line. Those people are doing the job. Don't make it worse for them. Don't make it worse for the community.
Yeah, it is so fascinating. Just when you get on the idea of due process, I was having this conversation with my husband over dinner just before you and I got onto this podcast, and I said, it's so fascinating to me that nobody can see the next leap. I said, I would hope that people would be so fastidious about due process, because you don't want anyone to be sent to a horrible prison camp for something they didn't do. I said, but even if you didn't care about other people, the logical thing would be like, I want due process because I don't want someone just showing up at my door and yanking me out and shipping me to another country.
Yeah, that could happen to me. or anybody I know.
Anybody, anywhere. I mean, that's the whole idea, is like, you would think people would at least go like, I don't want it to I don't care if it happens to other people, I just don't want it to happen to me. People can't even
Right.
make that leap. They're like, it would never happen to me. I'm like, oh my goodness, really? Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah, I just want to say every day I scroll down social media and I see one Hispanic guy or one whatever that voted for Trump getting caught by ICE. So,
Yeah.
okay, hello, baby. They came for me. No, they came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. So again, it comes back to the whole quote you said, about the apathy is not an option. It is, it's not. It's not, if we want some resemblance of the country, at least that we kind of hope we thought we were
Right.
at the end of this 4 years, to be left over. And this has nothing to do with party politics. I can't give two shits about Democrats. They suck ass. They're why we're at. Like all this sort of apathy and
Yeah,
this
they
like,
weren't listening.
yeah, just hand wringing over every time they had all the majority, they did shit all with it. So like, I don't even want to hear the argument from anybody either side, because the fact that we only have two sides is also like annoying as hell. But yeah, it's just like, you do any traveling and you go back to like this Itchy Boots and like our channel and stuff. But like, I did traveling stuff when I was young, and definitely when I worked for Live Nation, I worked for big tours and everybody was from all over the world. And they were so confused about our healthcare. And I would say like, they're like, well, explain to me how it works. And I'm like, well, we pay top dollar for it, and then they can deny anything they want. And they're like, well, that would be illegal in Holland or wherever. And I'm like, oh, it gets worse than that. I'm like, that's not just that. We have to pay co-pays for visits, for specialists. We have to get permission. We have to pay co-pays for our insurance. And they're like, no, you're already paying. I'm like, no, we. And they're like, so what do you pay for? And I said, we pay for yachts. For rich people, we pay for
Yeah.
homes, we pay for jets, we don't pay for insurance, we pay for bullshit for them to have. And then they pay for lobbyists to make it legal for them to fleece us. But they were always so confused, because I had a friend of mine that was on tour in England. She was an American. She found a lump on her breast, and she's like, oh my gosh, like it's gonna take me forever. And they got her in the very next day, and then they took her in. They got her through the entire process within 3 hours, biopsy, everything, all in the same building, test results, God. Everything. And she was fine, totally cancer free. It was just a benign cyst. But they said, we're so sorry, but we have to bill you. And she's like, I understand. I'll take out a loan or whatever. Like, oh no, it's just $33, but you're not from here, so we have to bill you something. $33.
Yeah.
33 freaking dollars for a biopsy.
Wow. Give me a copay like that, baby. So
I'm like, yeah, it's just wild to me. Wild.
It is wild. That's so very honest, very honest. I want to make sure we include information about your writing and anything that's commercially available. Your website is Sonya Mastick.
Mastic.com. Yep. SonyaMastick.com. And
then
yeah.
For this is a 2013 book, and it's so relevant. Prisoner to Patriot, a compelling nonfiction work that details the life of No Shimokochi.
Yeah, you got it. Nobuyuki Shimokochi. Yep.
A Japanese American who travels the unlikely path from a U.S. internment camp prisoner to United States Army veteran. Keep him in America, man. Wow.
Yeah. So that again, that is also why I'm so like get so fired up about due process. So Nob was a friend of mine. He's since passed away. He died. He passed away in his 80s. But it took me about 2.5 years to write that book, and I sat and interviewed him that entire time. And yeah, so his he and his sister were born and raised here in Los Angeles, actually. And his parents were first generation from Japan. And after once World War II broke out, like, hundreds of thousands of other Japanese people, they were rounded up by the military, and they said they hung up posters around the neighborhoods and said they gave each like quadrant of neighborhoods like a check-in point, like a church or something, and said that you have to check in by this day, and if you don't, then we're going to come by gunpoint, take you out, take you there.
Sure.
So they took them there, and they then loaded them on buses with the windows covered so nobody could see what they were doing. Nobe's family and those people, they got taken to the Santa Ana racetrack, the horse track. So they made them live in horse stables for a while. They took every possession that they owned, shoved it in the middle of the racetrack, and set it on fire. Cars, clothing, anything that they own, they've been guilty of nothing. They got no due process, guilty of nothing. His family owned 2 businesses. They were like upstanding family members, as were 99.9% of the people that were there. So then eventually they take him out of the urine soaked horse stalls that smelled horrific, and had them live there for no reason. And then they finally took them to internment camps where they were there for years. They were ill-equipped for the weather, so they didn't have warm clothing or anything, and they just had like these sort of shack walls that they put them up in, and they took all their, even the possessions they were allowed to take with them, they ended up stealing that from them. And it was a really bad thing. So then he goes through a whole that process, and then he gets out of the camp. The war ends when he's 17, and he enlists into the army.
Wow.
It's just a crazy story, but that is, again, why due process is so like ingrained in me. This isn't a story about somebody that I heard about. This is a friend of mine. Like, I spent years and years interviewing him and like hearing all the stories. And in the book, I have all the photos, all the proof. It really happened, and it was really horrific.
Is it a children's book, or is it for all ages?
It is not a children's book, but it is. It has been taught in high schools. People have bought copies of these, and you can get them at the historical, like Yellowstone Park and other places where they had internment camps nearby. They have interpretive centers there, and you can buy copies of the book there. And it's in the Library of Congress, and it ended up being like taking on a life of its own. And people have been using it for a teaching aid to really teach about what happened during that time.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your service to our country with that book, and thank no
Yeah
for
no,
his
was amazing, just amazing guy, just the most like lovable, kind, sweet till the very end. I was with him literally until the day he died, and
Wow.
he was just like absolutely just a light of a person.
Right on. Thank you for that. Is there anything that you want to add in this interview? This has been so, for me, this interview is thoughtful and inspiring on many levels. What would you like to add?
I don't think anything. I just really appreciate, I really have, looked up to you over the years.
Oh,
Meeting you in the circles that we have and music business and stuff. And so I was very tickled for you to invite me and include me in it, and for us to touch base again on social media. So it's been really nice.
well, that's thank you for your kindness, and I am grateful to you, and I'm looking up to you right now. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, the feeling is mutual. So it was a great time. I will come on anytime and chat with you.
we'll do some more in the future. Keep busy. I want to hear about this. What is the company called? And is there a website? Otter?
Orange Otter Marketing. Yeah, and so it's orange hyphen, so just orange hyphen otter .com.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will find you.
Yeah.
I'm going
So that's been a joy. That business with my friends Paul and Hannah has been absolutely a blast, because once you all go to it and see it, the imagery is so fun. It is an orange otter, like a cartoon otter, and otters are so joyful, and so we had a lot of options of names we were kind of ruminating through, and we kept coming back to this because he was like such a playful little scamp. I'm like, we could do so much with a playful cartoon otter. So that's kind of how we landed on choosing that. Was we wanted to have fun with it. So
and you did. And I'm thankful. Sonya Mastick, you rock. And I look forward to more conversations and the kickassery of Orange Otter and everything else. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.